Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Community Governance and Electoral Issues Committee. I am Max Thompson, and I'm not chair of this committee. I'm the vice chair, and I'm going to use my discretion to move agenda item 7, election of a chair, up to agenda item 1. So, can I please have a nomination for chair of this committee? Councillor Forder.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Robert Madison as chair of this committee.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lugola.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, very good. Are there any other nominations? Excellent. In which case, I'll take a vote on this. So all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Congratulations, Councillor Madison. And I will remove myself from this place and let you take up your seat as chair of this committee.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, I will situate my bits and bobs and then we can proceed. Before we go any further, I think Sarah was having a little bit of an issue getting the...
Yeah, so this is the first time since the IT upgrades that I've tried to log in Abbey House. It's been fine at home, but it will not log in at all. It says the group policy is faulty, so I'm actually unable to see the papers on through. Oh, that's really fine.
I have it on the computer.
Are you sure?
That's only the
cover sheet.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to see though if I can find it on my phone. That might.
Are you the alternative way? And if I may interrupt, are we using SV Guest? There's another.
But it's not actually letting me log in to the machine itself.
Oh, sorry, it's a bail machine, presumably.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
oh, sorry,
which I thought would work smoothly.
No, I don't use those. Right. You're welcome to come round and share if you want to.
I might come and sit over there. Thank you.
But if you want, you could swap with me. Yes, that makes more sense. Yeah.
I'm really sorry to cause all this trouble. It just didn't occur to me that it worked at home. It wouldn't work.
It's fine. It's fine. Everyone just experienced that. Almost the majority of our experience.
I'll be in touch with IT tomorrow.
Eric, are you situated as far as
yeah, my line connect to Electoral House. Thanks.
it may be possible to share under councillor's computer screen, perhaps, if you needed to refer to something in the agenda. Yeah, I think we can probably run through the routine bits while Eric's working on that. So item number 2 is apologies for absence. I don't believe we've got any apologies, and as far as I can see, we've got a full complement here this evening. Okay. Minutes of previous meeting, which I was not at, but we've got plenty here who were. So if somebody would like to,
I'll move adoption. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Okay. Declarations of interest. I have none. Does anybody here have any? No. Urgent business. I don't believe there is any at all, unless there is anything. No. And public participation. Again, I don't believe we have any registered members of the public speaking. Nor do I believe we have any councillors in attendance who are not part of the committee. Item 7 is election of chair, which we've covered, which brings us to our substantial item for the meeting, which is item number 8, to consider the submission for the boundary arrangements for the upcoming reviews and changes to the boundaries of the wards in the Vale. Shall we start by asking one of our officers to just walk us through the revisions that have taken place to the submission since the last time this committee met?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to do that. As you stated, this committee last time it met considered some officer proposals and also comments submitted by members on those proposals. In light of that, made recommendations to Council at its meeting on the 21st of February, which were adopted by Council, albeit with a number of, I think, 3 abstentions from councillors. And that resolution requested officers go away and consider the comments made by members, also to look at possibility of more multi-member wards, and to come up with further proposals and ensure that all councillors were consulted on those. Officers have done that, and so at Appendix B before you tonight are revised proposals. Chair said it's a number of changes. The first relates to Littleworth Parish. In the original proposals, Littleworth was included within a large Stanford ward, and a number of members suggested that it didn't sit well because of the A420 from a community cohesion point of view, and suggested Littleworth be moved into the Farringdon ward. So that's the first change. In respect to multi-member wards, we invited members to put forward proposals, one of which is included in revised proposals this evening, and that's for a combined ward of Marcham and Wootton. Both the existing ward councils recognise that Marcham and Wootton themselves don't have a lot in common. However, the parish of St Helen Without is currently split between the 2 wards, and so if you had a 2-member multi-member ward, then the parish will no longer be divided. Added to that, there's the issue of future development in those wards at Dalton Barracks, and the view expressed by the current local ward councillors is that we have one ward covering that area with better representation for the local community. The third change is in respect of Grove. In the original proposals, Grove was a ward covering just the parish of Grove, and it was felt that it should be extended to achieve greater electoral quality across the district. So that has been extended to include parishes of West Hammy and Denchworth. As I said earlier on, we did circulated the draft proposals to all members. We had one ward councillor respond, and I have circulated that to committee, and that was in respect of the views from Littleworth Parish who were not in support of being included in a Farringdon ward, and felt that their community cohesion rested more with the rural ward of Stanford. So in effect, suggest that Littleworth probably support the original proposal. Obviously, it's up to this committee to come to a decision. So you have before you tonight, Chair, the Appendix B, the revised draft proposals. They the deadline for submission to the Boundary Commission is this Friday. They kindly extended the deadline to the consultation for everyone, not just this council, from today until the end of the week, to give this committee time to reconsider any revised proposals. So I would urge the committee not to make too many drastic changes, because obviously that will have an impact on the whole workings and probably necessitate another committee, which would mean we'd miss the deadline. And therefore, I would, once again, I've done this many times in emails, I think, of this committee, reiterate that this is the council's submission. The Boundary Commission will publish draft proposals in June, and therefore this committee and wider council, parishes, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on those draft proposals. And we know from the experience from the previous review that the Boundary Commission do have regard to consultation responses at that stage. So I want councils to think that this is the only chance they have of making representations. We will have another opportunity later in the summer. So, Chair, that's all I really wish to say. I'd obviously respond to any questions.
Thank you. I think that covered pretty much everything that we might be interested in tonight. Just to make a couple of remarks. Firstly, just to set the table a little bit for everybody. I'm sure, as everybody is aware, and as Stephen has just mentioned, this document is going to be submitted on Friday this week. I would just invite everybody to be mindful that we are Monday, end of day now. And this is a stage in a process which has gone on for a few months already, and is going to continue for a few months after this as well. So I don't think we necessarily want to invite substantial changes to what's been laid out before us, especially given that it has been drawn up with the benefit of consultation already with councillors. But nonetheless, we'll welcome any views that anybody wants to put forward. If I could just prompt everybody to begin our discussion. We all will have seen the email sent round by Councillor Coleman outlining concerns regarding Littleworth Parish Council, which was initially, as we've heard, going to be part of the Stanford ward. In the report we have in Appendix B is being included in Farringdon. And Councillor Coleman has reported that the parish council would actually prefer to be situated within the Stanford ward, as it was in the initial submission. That, I think, is probably going to be the most substantial topic for us to cover. I'd just like to start by inviting anybody's views on this question.
I'll just ask a question for clarification, Chair, which is, if we were to put Littleworth back into Stanford, I think that's the way it goes, isn't it? Would that involve a lot of redrafting, or would that be possible without a lot of redrafting?
I'm sure our officer can clarify that one.
That would be minimal amount of work. It wouldn't push the electoral equality drastically one way or the other, so that would be fine.
Well,
It's about 70% over at the moment Stanford, so it wouldn't have great impact.
so given that, and given the reaction from Littleworth Parish, it would seem sensible perhaps to take that route and put it back into Stanford. I suspect there's probably not many other amendments that we need to make unless there are fresh minds at work here.
Yeah, so personally, I think that if it's not going to be a great amount of work, then certainly we can consider it as a reasonable possibility. We've heard from Councillor Border. I would invite any other views on the movement of Littleworth
So I'm undecided on this. I think that the key thing for me is that this is something which is going to go off to the Electoral Commission, who will also receive the opportunity for Littleworth and other parishes to comment on this at that stage. So again, we'll see where the debate goes. Maybe we can consider putting it back in, but I guess it's more just to clarify. So the numbers we've got here are Farringdon with 2 members and 18% variance over, and Stanford with 1 member with a 7% variance over. I just want to check. So we've got the old variances as well in Appendix A. Let me just check we've got those. So I'm going up to them. Actually, no, they're not. They're not on this. I don't suppose you know what's the percentage if we do put Littleworth back into Stanford. What would then the percentage variances be? I know it was on the agenda we saw last time, but I don't have it in front of me right now. And I guess the key thing is they both be acceptable variances from our officers' perspective. So I just want to, just get a sense of what they're going to be if they can move back.
Chair, just working that out in my head.
Sorry, thank you.
On a spreadsheet. Farringdon would revert to 14% over, and Stanford would also be 14% over. Now, I know the Commission likes to work within tolerance, nothing more than 10%, but they will look at likely development, etc., etc. So, in the past, they have agreed variances above 10%. They don't like to go over 20%, obviously.
Can I just suggest, sorry, if I can take another comment here, which is that, it seems that there's some 3 options here, right? There's either Littleworth is in Stanford, or it's in Farringdon, or it's in Kings and Bagviews. And it says in this report that would make Kings and Bagviews potentially unmanageable in terms of its size, even with 2 members. But personally, I would suggest we leave the report as it is on this matter, but we make it very clear that Littleworth will be able to put their representation to the Electoral Commission. And then indeed, when this paper comes back to us in June, that might be the moment for us to have the more detailed discussion about where Littleworth falls. And indeed, we may have representatives from Littleworth come and speak to us at that point to make their representations known beyond the emails we've received. So that might be would be, we don't need to change it, but I will go with the majority, obviously.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I had a follow-up question of my own. In the initial proposal, we saw Littleworth in Stanford. It was then in the second proposal moved over to Farringdon. For the sake of the discussion, I think it might just be helpful if we can hear a little bit from our officer about what the rationale was for including it in Farringdon rather than Stanford the second time around.
That was in response to a number of comments from members of this council who felt that the map attached to the report, so I think it's the A420. So it was felt, views expressed that if you were, because of the A420, that was a man-made boundary which cut the majority of the parish off from Stanford, and therefore it suggested that from a community cohesion point of view, it would sit better within the Farringdon ward. So that's why that change was made entirely on feedback from a number of members of this council.
Okay. Did anybody else want to come in on the topic of Littleworth? We'll have Councillor Delhart and then Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. So, am I right in understanding that some members have said it should be in Farringdon because of the road, and the parish itself has said they felt they should be in Stanford because they feel closer to Stanford?
I don't think they necessarily said they felt close to Stanford. They felt they should be within a rural that Farringdon, really their responses. Farringdon's more of an urban area and have different issues than a more rural ward. So they'd rather be in a rural ward.
Which makes a lot of sense to me, if that's what the parish want, and it doesn't affect the numbers too badly. That's what I would.
Thank you, Councillor Delhart. Councillor James.
I think my slight concern was, I think you said that that would put Stamford up to a variance of 14%, but Stamford's only a one councillor ward. I mean, that does seem a pretty large variance for one councillor. Or is that? No, I guess that is per councillor, isn't it? So Farringdon would still be 14% per councillor.
Well, it's 14%
As well.
over the average. So you have the electorate, and then we've gone for 39 councillors, which is one above what the commission recommends. That could be an issue straight away.
Yeah.
But I think it's works out that counts average electorate per council is 3,112. So 40% means they'd be representing more, 40% above that average.
Can I ask, would it be a lot of work to move Littleworth into the Kingston Bagfuse ward? I just wonder whether that might work better for the numbers and would still fulfil Littleworth's concern that they were in a rural ward, and also that they wouldn't, the A420 actually runs through the middle of that ward anyway.
Just
Is it possible to share the map at all, or is this so we can because I've got the map in front of me, but it doesn't say where Littleworth actually is. So I think I know which bit.
Littleworth is SRD on your map.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if Littleworth were to go into Kingston Bagfuse, then Kingston Bagfuse will have a 0%, so it'll be spot on. Farringdon would remain 14%. Stamford would be 7%.
And Kingston Bagfuse would be a 2-seat ward. I mean, I do agree it'd be a very large ward, but not the only large ward. I mean, Watchfield and Shrivenham is 2 seats and also very large.
Okay. So I think we will have to invite a motion and a vote, I think, on the topic of Littleworth, just to clarify what our final resolution on that. Before we come around to that, I would just like to run over Appendix B. And we will just scroll over. I'm looking at page 17, where we start with the table on the warding proposals, and then we run over comments on each of the areas. I'm just going to scroll over. We'll go Abingdon, Farringdon, etc. down them. I'm not expecting any queries or problems, but if anybody does have anything they want to add, now I would suggest is the time. So we have Abingdon on Thames, which will be changed over to three member wards. As an Abingdon councillor, I think this makes a lot of sense. I know we've got a few Abingdon councillors here. Does anybody have any final comments? No. Farringdon, which is obviously connected to our Littleworth discussion. Does anybody have any other notes to make about submission regarding Farringdon? Wantage and Grove. Blueberry and Harwell. Otley and Sunningwell. Humner. Brayton. Hindreds. Pennington and Radley. Kingston Bagfuse. Marcham and Wootton. Ridgeway. Stanford, which we're discussing already. Steventon and East Hannay. Sutton Courtenay. Thames, which we are suggesting will be removed. And finally, Watchfield and Shrivenham. Okay. I will take it then that we don't really have any pressing topics to cover other than Littleworth. So if we can come back around to that, And I think what we're looking at now is for somebody to put forward a motion, which we can then debate on whether we would prefer Littleworth to remain as it is in the current submission, which we part of Farringdon, moved over to Stanford, or we've had another suggestion, which is the possibility of including it in Kingston Bag Pews. Councillor Thompson.
Can I just ask a question just before we move into debate, if that's okay? I just want to check. So what have the ward members said? Have the ward members said anything about moving Littleworth into Kingston Bag Pews? So has the ward member for Kingston Bag Pews said anything, or has this been something that's been raised with them?
The ward councillor for the Thames ward.
Yes.
Which you voted to get rid of. In the email I circulated, raised a number of options. One of them was moving Littleworth into Kingston Bag Pews.
Right.
The other was to move Littleworth and maybe some neighbouring parishes into Farringdon and maybe making that a 3-member ward. So there's options around for free, really, around there.
Thank you.
Does anybody wish to submit a motion for the committee to consider? If
Well,
It's so tricky.
I think why don't you just propose it and then we can discuss it, can't we? I mean, it's a,
yeah, we can debate. We don't have to go straight into a vote.
I will, well, in that case, I'd like to propose that we move Littleworth into the Kingston Bag Pews ward in order to support Littleworth Parish Council, feeling that that is where they belong, that they, well, not that they necessarily belong in that ward, but that they belong in a rural ward as a community, and also because that doesn't actually increase the pressure or the variance on any ward.
certainly for the sake of debate, and notwithstanding the fact that the new councillor seems to have been taking it over, I will second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Okay, so we can move into debate. If anybody would like to say anything.
So, I mean, I fully intended to say let's just leave it as it is, but actually, I think that Councillor James, you make a really sensible point. It's a 0% variance. I think my only slight concern is that Kingston Bag Pews will be very, very large, even with 2 members, and I would be more comfortable had the ward member for Kingston Bag Pews basically, if she were here saying, I think this is a good idea, I'd be slightly more comfortable. But I think given that this is a draft proposal, which may yet change later on, and given that it does actually improve the electoral variance and Kingston Bag Pews is going to have 2 members, I do think this is more sensible. I must say my personal view is it makes more sense to have Kingston Bag Pews with 2 members and Farringdon with 2 members rather than the 3-member Farringdon ward, 1-member Kingston Bag Pews, because what remains as Kingston Bag Pews will still be enormous for one person to cover. So my strong view is 2 members, and I will support this motion. I think it's very sensible, and I hope that the Kingston Bag Pews' ward member would also agree. So that's why
I would actually, while having seconded the motion, completely agree with all the comments we've had from the proposer and from Councillor Thompson. And actually, the problem is sometimes in these things there is no perfect solution, so we're looking at a range of options. And I think this is at least as good as any, and if not a little better, certainly in terms of the numbers, of making it more likely perhaps that the Electoral Commission will look on our proposals favourably. I think this makes this more sensible, whereas rather than having 2 14% variances, which would have been the result of the other proposals.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Okay. Well, we have a motion which has been proposed and seconded. If we can now move to a vote. So, all those in favour of Councillor James's motion? Those against? And any abstentions? Okay. I think we're all set. I don't believe we have anything else to cover, so I think with that we can bring the meeting to a close.
Okay, you just need to go back to the officer rec.
Scroll back up to my top of my screen there.
So proposal is to agree a draft, agree a submission to the boundary commission.
Yeah.
So I guess it would be if members are still in agreement, everything else in their appendix B is subject to that change, and then to authorise myself in consultation with you to finalise a document for submission. And for the, I mean, we can circulate to members of the committee. It will primarily consist of Appendix B, but it will have a extra words at the beginning to just state the decision-making process. So it will set out this committee's meeting in February, the council meeting, and then this meeting again. And it can also reference why the change was made to Edgeworth in there as well. So it just becomes a standalone document with links to the various reports and minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. And with that, can we close the meeting?